Good afternoon, Flagler County. I am Crystal DeWind with the Flagler County Buzz, and we are sitting here with Cornelia Manfre, who is running for mayor of Palm Coast. It's such a pleasure to sit down and talk with you today.
Thank you.
We're going to jump right in.
Okay.
And first, why don't you tell us a little bit about why you decided to run this year?
I decided to run basically because there are services within the city of Palm Coast that are behind in terms of funding, specifically infrastructure. I basically call it a default that we have treatment plans that have not been funded, have not been planned for, and have not been engineered, and now it is affecting people's residences. So during Milton, we were told not to flush toilets. There's something wrong if a system is that over capacity and it has not been addressed. That is one of the reasons. Another reason is that I would like to find a city manager that has the experience and capability to be able to deal with the financial forecasting. That is absolutely necessary for the city, along with performance-based reviews for the employees. Do we have enough? Do we have too many? Are we balanced? And also reviewing the increase in the appreciated values of the real estate that has taken us from 2020 through 2024 with a 45% increase in revenue. And now that brought us to $340 million collection for 2023. Now we're jumping at $421 million. I don't think we need a tax increase. I think we need a solid review of the numbers, the application, and the enforcement of those numbers per department. I am very big about preserving our byways, highways, our trails. We have quite a unique area in terms of the natural beauties that we have here. We have a tremendous amount of preserved property already. The Graham Swamp, which runs about 4,000 acres, 1,000 acres below Route 100 that's owned by the county, and in different pockets all throughout the community. I would like to see more community parks, small parks where young families can take their children. They don't have to be 10, 20, and 50 acres. I'm talking just a few acres per neighborhood that would give some relief to families to have a community park. I'd also like to bring in a YMCA. I think we are very behind many communities. I have visited probably about 8 to 10 YMCA. I've been working with them for years. They have the programs down pat. They understand programming for seniors. They understand about the exercise programs that people look for, the swimming capability. We don't have a pool. We have Frida Zamba, and that is it for our school swim teams. And you know, a lot of Olympic swimmers come from the state of Florida. We should be contributing to that. So I believe that we have some property downtown center that's been offered for a while. We also have excess properties within the city limits owned by the city that could be converted into YMCA. Those are my main reasons for running. I have 40 years of business experience. I've been a trained negotiator, a facilitator. I worked 20 years for corporate real estate in New York for Fortune 100 companies. So I had the training to be able to guide the council. The council, just as a reminder, is a board of directors. The mayor runs the meetings. The staff and the city manager is your chief operating officer. So we need to hire someone that has business acumen, financial wherewithal, and can do forecasting and understand the functions of each of the departments and confirm the departments are operating at A+ level.
Okay. And to kind of follow up the why you chose to run, how are you responding to the residents' concerns about having a licensed realtor holding office after the history that they've just been through with real estate agents on the different boards and commissions? So what are you doing to respond to those concerns?
Number one, I think that my real estate license is one of my licenses. I have other certifications. I am actually a commercial and industrial advisor. That is quite different from what typically people think of as a realtor. But honestly, the realtors in our county are the ambassadors for the area. Who did you use to buy your house? Who gave you the advice? Who had the training and the knowledge of the community to be able to help you with your major investment? I think realtors should be respected. Okay. In terms of how people are reacting, I'm emphasizing the fact that I have brought hundreds of jobs here through my commercial and industrial developments. I brought in Coles and Belk, the Coles and the Belk, the Lowe's, and the Publix and SunTrust here on A1A in the Hammock. I am accustomed to working with national developers. I know how to be able to put negotiations together to a consummation of a transaction. So I think realtors should be respected.
Okay. Since you mentioned that you've worked with larger national developers, during the September 3rd business meeting, Pontieri brought up the fact that one of the roads, the Palm Coast Extension, the Royal Palms Extension out west, were supposed to be funded by the landowner in the original DRI, and we've already received funding from Tallahassee to cover that. So knowing that some of these larger developers and landowners have not been holding to their DRI agreements, how would you respond if elected as mayor to that scenario to kind of bring back some
balance
for
let's
the residents?
Balance it out. Okay, let's balance it out. My understanding is that that road had been planned as part of a Northeast Florida extension. Okay, I-95, when you get on an accident or the backup accident on the I-95, it shuts down.
Mm-hmm.
So the state, the Northeast Regional Councils, have been looking for ways to create our road infrastructure to give some relief to I-95. That road has been planned for decades to be an extension from the Jacksonville area. So Jacksonville has been extending the First Coast Parkway down, and it's a beautiful new road, and it gives relief to the western side of Jacksonville. This loop road is supposed to be able to hook up with that and give relief coming down south, down into Volusia County. So there's a lot of reaction that the developer was supposed to be doing the road. The developer will be doing the ancillary roads, but your major roads either are funded through state proceeds or your interstate system through the federal government. So that road is to help some of the pressure from I-95. So that money was allocated and it's done. So let's move on to the rest of it. So now we're talking about the rest of the area being, you can call it development of regional impact and master plan development. They have not submitted an MPD, which is a change from a DRI.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, it's the council and the planning departments and all of the service infrastructure people that give approval to what that expansion is going to look like. If we think there's a need for a bit more industrial zone property, we will request that. So let's talk about development for a minute, because I've been enlightened to the way other municipalities are operating. So there's a municipality hired a new city manager, and the edict from the city council was that we don't want any more complaints of how things are getting processed. When a group comes in and they want to do some kind of a development, you are going to arrange to have these monthly meetings with the development group. So by the time they make the application to the city, it is smooth sailing. And we need to adjust a couple of our policies and procedures to make these things flow at a better pace. Staff needs to be trained. They need to understand I'm big about customer service. I'm also big about training on what the time value of money is. Developers people want to call them greedy. I find that rude because they have a lot of financial acumen, and it's a tremendous amount of planning to put these type of developments together. The amount of money that ITT spent in this area was tremendous, and we are all benefiting from the infrastructure that they put in and the byways that we have today. So with that, it's our mantle of opportunity to be able to take the city to the next level. We have to carry on what was planned, but also make adjustments where necessary, but make sure that we have the infrastructure in place and allow the planning to continue, because no matter what, everybody says they want really good restaurants here, but you can't get good restaurants if you can't get it planned in there.
Okay. And I know you had mentioned a YMCA, and in that same meeting when she was reading out things in that original DRI, one of them was a junior Olympic sized pool along with a park. So knowing that they've requested to put in new MPDs with the new comp plan, if you're elected, is that something you're going to try to push to keep in that development order?
Yes, but right now we need a YMCA right away. So I would like to see a YMCA with a pool.
Okay.
I think it's important for our high school students to have training capabilities, and that's what the Y can offer. So the Y to me is a big priority. A second Y possibly could be planned for that westward expansion, but that's 3, 5, 7 years down the road. Okay, I'm talking about immediate need, immediate fulfillment. Let's get the Y in here.
Okay. So let's talk about the budget, because you did bring up that the budget has been growing significantly over the last few years. Do you see any serious concerns with the city's budget and the state that it's in? And do you feel that there's a need for the forensic audit that so many residents are calling for?
Forensic audit typically is when you have evidence that something is amiss. And I don't see that. I think we need an audit and consultancy to be able to change the numbers per department so that we're putting the monies where we need it immediately. But a forensic audit, you're talking about huge sums of money to do that. And I don't see that anybody has actually broken the law. I've not heard of evidence of people lining their pockets. So I think I want to move on for that conversation. Let's look at the numbers and get the numbers in order and plan out this infrastructure that must be done immediately.
Okay. And one of the biggest pieces of infrastructure that everybody's been talking about, and you touched on it before, is the water utilities, both water and wastewater. I know earlier this year, the city of Palm Coast and DEP came to an agreement that the rates need to be raised because we're getting to a point where they need to start building new plants, and it's going to cause a raise on the utility rates for all of the residents. So if you're elected, how do you plan to balance that need for infrastructure with the rate change and any possible tax increases?
Well, right now, why are we raising taxes when we just got a huge increase? So it's studying the numbers of where they're applying the numbers right now. I would like to see a balancing out of the numbers. If we need to have a rate increase, can we do something with the real estate tax, because that's a separate number, that's a separate bill. Is there some relief that we can give in the real estate tax, knowing the amount of money that's being collected by virtue of the appreciation and the new constructions that are coming online? So it's a balancing of the numbers. It's not tit for tat. This is try to make it as balanced as possible. I don't want to see people on fixed income have to pay much more than where they're at right now. And so it's about the numbers. So the numbers have to be studied and balanced out. If there's a utility rate increase, can we help out on the tax amount?
Okay. Another one of the big infrastructure issues is traffic and roads. I know they're starting to repave certain roads in Palm Coast. They just did Pine Lakes. They're working on Rimfire. but that's just a repaving. And a lot of residents have voiced their concerns in social media posts and even in the city meetings about there's too much traffic to fit on some of the roads. So if you're elected, do you have any plans on how you want the city to move forward with working on alleviating some of that traffic?
Okay, so SR 100 is a big topic of
Mhm.
conversation. So what I say to the public is that you have to remember when you have a new store, everybody wants to run to the new store by volumes because they're having giveaways, they've got coupons, they've got balloons giving red bags away, i.e. BJ Warehouse. So BJ's opening, plus the fact that they have probably the least expensive gasoline in the city. So throngs of people are going there. When I stopped to BJ's right before the hurricane, the line to use the gasoline had to have been 40 or 50 cars. Okay, so it's natural, it is projected, it's anticipated of people's excitement when something new opens. So a lot of that traffic now has died down. So I was coming out of Panera Bread 9:30 in the morning, and I get to 100 to turn right to go into the BJ, and there all those lanes were empty. So it's the traffic flow and enthusiasm of something, a new store opening that gets masses of people to go there. Plus you have the schools being released at the same time. So that will balance itself out. As far as road repaving, I'm adamant about that. I'm being told 22 miles in 1 year, and I'm thinking, we have hundreds of miles to get covered. We have to look at this formula and see where we can apply more. Do we have to necessarily buy more equipment, or should we subcontract it? That may be a cheaper way of doing it. Not having to have a lot of new hires, not having to have a lot of the benefits that you have to give employees. Hire a company to come in here and help us get it done at a faster pace and then be done. So you've got subcontracting capability as well. As far as Palm Coast Parkway goes, that was 6-lane when Lowe's and Belk was being planned. At one point, the city asked that developer, CBL and Associates, to consider a flyover I-95. That was a $14 million projection 18 years ago. That's crazy. So they agreed to help with the impact fees in widening of Palm Coast Parkway. Now we have to get down to the synchronization of the lights. Okay, so it's not based on trip, that it's based on timing. Like New York City, you have east-west, pretty much go at the same time, timing, and then you have your north-south go. So you're alleviating the backup. We can apply the same thing. We've been asking for years to see the lights synchronized, and now it's time to do it.
Okay. You did mention that one of the reasons you chose to run was because of the city manager. We all saw that Denise Bevins was fired from her job earlier this year during one of the city meetings. Do you feel that she was failing at her job?
I don't want to say the word failing. I think she didn't have the knowledge and the acumen to be able to perform the job.
Okay.
There were some companies that I was trying to deal with and had her part of my meetings, and I was not seeing the direction that we needed at that time to help the company get through the approval process to put up a 20,000 square foot industrial building. So she was good in her role before, but city manager just takes on other levels of capability and background, and that's what she didn't have that. And
okay, do you have specific criteria that you're looking for if elected for a city manager?
Yes, so I have a 3-prong approach to finding a city manager. One, the possibility of somebody from the local, somebody that's already knowledgeable of our business partners, the government, the operations, and finance. Secondly, is to be able to go through this League of Cities and other hiring capabilities that municipalities use. Third, I'd like to talk to consultant companies. The reason why I say consultant companies, such as the Boston Consulting Group, because the employees are they are brought into the company at a high level. They're trained to be problem solvers, and with that, be able to go into different positions as a problem solver. And I have found that consultant companies encourage some employees to go in and work in the trade that which they were consulting. And I think that could be a huge benefit. We need a problem solver.
Okay. Um, and you touched on your ability and your experience working with bigger industries and things like that. So what are your plans and goals for the small business community here in Palm Coast if you're elected? Because a lot of small business owners feel that Palm Coast is not necessarily the most business friendly.
Right. And we want to change that. I mean, the backbone of America is off small business. And I've worked leasing on Hargrove Grade, Utility Drive, Commerce Boulevard. I understand the small business community, and I hear that the process inside the City Hall to get permitting or approvals or licenses is difficult. So we want to correct that. I am very big about trying to plan out an industrial park here in Palm Coast. Something similar to the Ormond Beach Business Park back at the airport. Beautiful tree-lined roads. You couldn't believe that you're in an industrial park. So I would like to see something like that planned out here. I think there are developers out there that would like to embrace something like that. And I'm talking about a good chunk of land, probably about 20 to 50, probably 50 acres that you can parcel and then have 20,000 square foot buildings, 50,000 square foot building, and maybe a couple of 100,000 square foot buildings. And I think that's a plan I would like to take head on. I know there are places down at the Flagler Executive Airport, but those are land leases, but maybe do some joint venturing with the other municipalities to make this a collaborative effort to create an industrial park.
Okay. And my last question is on the last city meeting. For the second time this year, Councilperson Pontieri made a motion for a moratorium on residential building due to the state of the infrastructure in Palm Coast. Where do you stand on her motion and her ideology behind that moratorium?
I do not agree with a moratorium at all. These problems can be fixed today, and we have to get the funding. Anything that comes in here today, larger developments I'm talking about, are going to take a couple of years anyway. The smaller developments, we have to supply. I am told that most of the existing vacant lots in the community have already been paid for, or a certain amount of money has already been paid for those capacities, and that the capacities exist for those lots. We're talking about larger developments that are going to take time anyway. We should be catching up with time, and we have got to get the planning done for Sewer Treatment Plant 1, which is the cause of all the infrastructure problems. The swale, cleaning up, the water flows, they're starting to make some progress with that. But once I get in there, I want to know all the details. How much can get done at the fastest possible rate? We also have to find some external monies, possibly, or bond the expansion of the treatment plant 1. And it is what it is. We're being left with a bad deck of cards. And so the new council and the new administration have to address these problems immediately. But once you say moratorium, it triggers what's wrong with the place. Why do you have to go that far? I don't think that's necessary. And I think we have the wherewithal and the capabilities to go solve the problem without having to feel like we're threatening people. And that's what that feels like.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to
You're
talk
very
with us
welcome.
and answer the questions that the community
Thank
has. It was very pleasurable.
Thank you very much.
And thank you guys so much for watching. You can find this video on our website, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.